All right, Krista, let's move on to our second question. What you got for us?
Okay, so Sarah asks, when do you feel most creatively motivated? Not necessarily creatively productive or creatively effective, but when do you feel most motivated to create? When you are more engaged with pop culture or when you are more detached from it?
Does motivated to create, in your opinion, mean you're actually going to do it or you just feel like doing it? Feel inspired to do it? That's how I read it. When you feel the most motivated is like when I feel inspired to do it. It doesn't even necessarily mean that I'm going to do it right away, but when I feel the most inspired to do it. Is that how you're...
They're tied. I was thinking the word inspired too, but I think that is different for me than motivated. So like inspired by gets my brain going and I'm thinking a lot. Does that make me want to go do?
Right.
Not as much. I feel motivated. When I feel motivated, I tend to shut out external input, but there's already some input in there that's inspiring me. So I basically lock on to something and then I need to go flesh it out. So that I've got something rattling around up in here and it needs to do its thing. It needs to run its course, I think, for me.
I feel kind of similarly. I feel the most, if we think of inspired to create, when I am a little bit more isolated from pop culture. So if I'm very engaged in it, it's usually because I'm feeling pretty good. Things are going fine. I'm enjoying life. It's fun looking at these stories. It's fun watching these movies. It's fun playing these games. When I'm isolating, it's usually because I'm processing something, maybe something big, something a little bit more heavy. And that's when I feel inspired and motivated to create, as probably as a way to continue processing whatever it is that I'm experiencing.
There's a relationship between consuming and producing that I think happens with me. And I don't think I can do both well at the same time. So I think just like normal consumption, when I feel like I'm full, I stop and then I apply myself a little bit differently. And yeah.
Yeah, that sums up pretty well kind of how I feel. Like when I am engaged with other people's creativity, like my mind is busy processing their stuff. But when I'm detached, like my mind has to do something and it starts spinning up its own stuff. And so I feel like I do, there are times when I'm, watching TV or reading a book or playing someone's game and I think, oh, I would do that differently. Or, oh, that's triggering an idea in me. Like those moments do happen where I become motivated while engaged with someone else's creation, but not nearly on the same level or with the same frequency as like if I'm just going for a walk or I'm wandering around the forest or doing something outside and I'm not engaged with other stuff. Like my mind always starts creating in those times.
I like the digestive tract metaphor, because if we think of it like when we're consuming, okay, that's giving us ideas, that's giving us nutrients. But when it's in our body, the body's job then is to transform that into energy, right? And so if we can think of our creative process as that transformative process where we're taking what we've consumed and transforming it into something, into energy, right? We're transforming it into a creation of our own making that processes our own experience.
That begs the question, what are you feeding on, right? And do you need to consume other people's work in order to do that?
And what if you just eat nonstop forever? Then what happens?
Sick?
Bloated.
Yeah.
I guess the causation is sometimes different for me. Like I tend to not consume a lot in general. So when I have this great burst of motivation, inspiration, that kind of a feeling, then that tends to be when I do consume, because I have this, and I guess that's what motivates me to take in from other sources. It's like, I'm feeling this, I want to create it, I want to see how others have done it, I want to just like really dive into it and fully explore it. So I guess the motivation for the consumption would be the inspiration itself.
She actually waits till she's hungry to eat. I'm not sure I've felt hunger in years. There's too many bagels in the world.
Not when you're done.
Well, that's a great question from Sarah. It's interesting to just be intentional and mindful and reflect on how much we're actually plugged into pop culture and how that affects our creativity. I think that's the main purpose of even discussing this kind of thing, is being intentional and mindful about how we create and consume.
Yeah. One more note there. I don't know if plugged into pop culture is as relevant as being plugged into something.
Like any sort of
right?
medium.
Yeah.
Just input.
It doesn't have to be popular culture.
Yeah.
The input could be anything. It could be strawberries or jalapenos or whatever.
No, it can't.
It depends. It really does.
You're
It
trying
depends. What if it's a beautiful jalapeno? Have you seen, or a poblano?
Are they like?
I'm into spicy
Are they
peppers
like
What are
right
you
now.
wood
doing
fire?
right now?
I like it. Let's go back to the Saturday market of ideas.
I'm wishing I said farmer's market of ideas, because that was more like the Saturday
True.
market is just full of like
Beeswax candles. Love those though.
variations on beeswax candles.
Yeah.
It's better than
Drum
the Black
circles.
pantry of ideas where the hot pockets are.
I still go there.
I do like what, as to the question, the where you were taking his consumption thing, where like I don't think there's a right or a wrong. Like there's a very stereotypical answer here of like, oh, it's somewhere in the middle. Like a little bit of taking things in is good because it gives you something to churn on, and then a little bit of not taking things in is good because it gives you space to churn. And like, don't, if this question comes from a place of stress, like what is the perfect way for me to be like maximizing my creativity? I mean, I would say step one is don't overthink it, relax a little bit, find room for both modes in your life, and just, trust that it's going to come out and you're going to have instincts that are productive.
Yeah, I agree.